Hello, community, and welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite-Wilson, C-Suite Trusted Advisor, Board Director, and Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Consultant, helping members of the C-Suite and their teams reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. Today, I have with me as my special guest on Real Conversation from the C-Suite, Mr. Pete Deragon, the Managing Director and Global Practice Leader at Stanton Chase, a global executive search and consulting firm. Hi, Pete, and welcome to the show.
Greetings. Hi, how are you? I'd love to be here.
Thank you. I'm doing well, and we're just going to jump right into this. Our conversation is really going to be focused around kicking off with the Supreme Court decision about affirmative action on college campuses and how that might impact the workplace. I realize neither one of us are legal experts, so this is just a conversation, but I'm curious to know how you think this decision by the Supreme Court specific to college campuses might impact the weight or priority that DEI has in corporations. Because you are a recruiter, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you noticing?
Well, first of all, I think that it may or may not have a mega effect in education. I think there are a lot of very important changes going on in education as it is. In fact, it's just shocking to know that SATs are not going to be utilized as a part of the qualification process for students going into college. So there are a lot of sea changes going on. There's also a perception that is also a change that affects how many people are going to value a college education because the cost is so high. I mean, I don't have the percentages off the top of my head, but the cost of a college education is some 100 and some odd % higher than it was 20 years ago, and it's continuing to get higher. I think that there are a lot of alternatives. I think community colleges give a very nice alternative, especially to just get your general ed out of the way, and you'll probably have a better idea of where you go. In terms of the admissions, it's complex because admission standards are so subjective to begin with, and race is going to continue to be considered. It's just a matter of, are there going to be mandated numbers? Is there going to be a comparison between each underrepresented group? It's complex in that there are more than just a few underrepresented groups, including Asians. And I, did a little bit of study, and 75% of Asian Americans believe that ethnicity shouldn't be a factor in college admissions. And 50% of Asian American adults have college educations versus 1/3 of the U.S. adults overall. Mm-hmm. So, I think that demographics are changing quickly. The Hispanic population, especially here in California, is almost the majority. And of course, I think that opportunities for people of color should remain very high because there's such a disparity in economic success that I think it makes a lot of sense to give people a leg up, especially when it comes to getting into college. So, that's not a good set of talking points to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. But I think the bottom line is that there are so many changes going on within the college system that, we don't know where it's going to be in 3 or 4 years based on the changes that are being pushed. Another thing is that, California outlawed affirmative action in the 1990s. It was over 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to know and to study exactly how that affected diversity in schools.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you mention a leg up, I think in terms of a leg up, just to balance the playing field, to give folks an opportunity to get in the arena. And then when you talk about community colleges, I went to a community college, and to your point, until you're exactly sure what you want to major in, a community college is the most economical and reasonable way to go. Not proud of it, but I spent 4 years at a community college, obviously not because I wasn't bright enough. I did matriculate through some schools and become Dr. Anita, but because it took me that long to figure it out. And I think, especially in today's environment, when there are so many options for people to pursue, community college is just smart. It's a quality education. Again, it's affordable, and it helps people make that transition from somebody's going to be checking my homework to I need to be accountable if I'm going to be successful. And that is something else that translates to the business world when we become professionals. No one's going to be looking over your shoulder. You must hold yourself accountable. When we talk about SAT scores, I too find that interesting because on the one hand, SATs are there to make sure that you have the background and requisite knowledge to come into the system and be successful. On the other hand, we're looking at affirmative action to make sure that once you do have that requisite knowledge and pass the SATs to prove that you will be successful, that you will have an opportunity to succeed. And the bottom line about education is it's the great equalizer. Once you've got your degree, hopefully, it's one less tick against you that someone could say to a person of color or someone who's gender diverse, neurodiverse, disability, what have you. And so the benefit that I see of going back to school and pursuing education at whatever level that you are interested in or financially able to pursue, that is the great equalizer. And it just kind of seems like we've pulled the rug out. Again, to your point about a leg up, we've pulled a rug out from under people who are just needing that leg up to get in the arena, not to have an unfair advantage, but to say, hey, we see you and we want to be sure that you're not starting off with a disadvantage by not even having access to school. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's important also to make a tie between the opportunity that somebody's presented with and the success that they may achieve. Oftentimes, admissions may put someone who's under prepared into a college that is a little bit too rigorous for their background and their preparation. And I think it's important that people be matched well with a college that is appropriate for their academic rigor.
I want to interrupt you for a second there. Give me an example about that, because the whole point of admissions is to make sure that there is a match, not to put someone into a program where they're going to be set up to fail. So,
well, true.
Example.
Well, I think that if I was put into Harvard right out of high school, I would have failed. I might aspire to that because it had a lot of status. I went to a state university. Ultimately, I ended up at UC Santa Barbara. I was not academically rigorous, and the cost of my education was quite reasonable in the 70s and 80s. But nowadays, I may not have maybe been able to justify my own expenditure if I was going into college right now to go to the same university. I think that I may have been better off maybe in a community college for the first 2 years just to get my general ed out of the way, because I floundered a little bit before I actually decided on the political science degree that I got. I did very little planning in terms of my career. When I got out of school, I went to work for Bank of America, A, because they were hiring, and B, there was a training program, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And ultimately, I got into a role at Bank of America that didn't pay very well. But I was fortunate enough to pursue a job in the securities industry that instantly, gave me the reward after a couple of years of hard work, and discovering exactly what I was probably good at doing. But I did a few face plants on the way, and maybe that is part of the rite of passage within a school. But you don't want to have an expensive college education at stake when you're really just trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a possibility that, like, if I got into Stanford, I might have failed there too, because it's extremely rigorous. I probably didn't have the academic discipline that I might have needed to go there. I know a lot of people that went and succeeded quite well, but I also know some people that failed in Stanford, and they had decent grades, but I think that their discipline and their academic rigor wasn't up to the task.
So let's pursue that a little bit more.
Sure.
benefit would a college have to let someone in the program who risks failure? And again, I'm not saying that just because someone gets in automatically means they're going to succeed. To your point, we must have self-discipline, we must have determination, we must be realistic about our strengths and how we can apply those strengths into the academic setting. But to your point about sometimes admissions may mismatch someone's talent with their ability to succeed, what would be the benefit in letting something like that happen? That's what admissions is for, to right, appropriately screen people to make sure that they can be successful.
Right. Well, and you know, this is probably the controversial comment that I'm about to make. Perhaps if there are admissions that are trying to meet, admission numbers for underrepresented groups, could put an underrepresented person into a college that they're not prepared for because they're meeting another set of standards, not necessarily the academic ones.
Yeah, that is going to be a controversial statement. And there's no telling what kind of comments we're going to get based on what you just said, because that goes back to scenarios in the 60s where people were concerned that folks were just meeting quotas to get in women or people of color who were not qualified. And that, to my knowledge, has not been the case any more than, let's just say it, a white male who may not be qualified but has the opportunity to get in.
Absolutely. And sometimes I wonder why I was allowed in as a white male. But I figured it out. And pardon me?
Yeah, so you wondered sometimes how you were able to get in. Tell us, what did you figure out?
Well, I was a B student. There were requirements for, I was a political science major, so I got a pile of books about 4 feet high at the beginning of every quarter. And generally we were expected to read them cover to cover, which I did not. And then you're cramming for a test a week before. There's no way that you can read all that material and consume it. Cliff's notes were not very effective. And so I struggled, but I learned that you're going to have to put in the time early in a quarter to, be able to be prepared to achieve the test scores that you can to get the college degree that you want. So, it would have been easy to fail, but I took the challenge and gained a little bit of discipline and figured that I should probably go to the beach a little bit less and study a lot more. And there are a lot of all-nighters, but that was kind of the standard of my peers in political science. There were long papers and lots of reading to do, so you just had to do it early in the semester and have the discipline to get up early and start early and finish late.
Yeah. Interesting first conversation. So let's tie this off. What impact do you think this decision will have on college campuses in corporate America? Do you think that diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity efforts are going to take a lower priority? And do you think something similar like this might happen in corporate America?
I think the conversation is very rigorous in corporate America, whether or not the input that they're getting from students that are well prepared for a corporate job is going to change that much. Like I said, it's hard to tell because I think the one factor, and these are many factors for someone's success, the lack of SAT scores. I don't know what they're going to judge in students as requirements without at least some level of data that tells you that this individual scores high on tests and is therefore probably prepared for a college education. So, you've got to ask, what standards are they using? I mean, some of it's going to be the reputation of their high school, the number of classes that they took, the general grades that they got. Those are all valid. But the SAT scores, have always been a measuring stick. And if without those, it's hard to tell what the effect will be.
This will be an interesting conversation to follow up on maybe further down the line, because we're still in the mindset that college is a predictor of your success, but we know Bill Gates never finished college.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that there are certain professions that are painfully underrepresenting people, and especially, technology is one of them. There are efforts for corporations to get formal training for people that are not going to school, maybe even in community colleges that can have specialized courses that will prepare people to be successful at things like coding. I think there's a draw with specific skill sets that could be very effective in colleges. We know how, Europe divides kids into, two categories. They're either going to be, a technical skill, or they're going to have, go on to college. And that seems to work pretty well. Perhaps the U.S. needs to adapt a little bit more specific early rigor for technical educations, so that people can, take that off ramp and be effective at a younger age. And if these companies need lots of skilled people, they're going to have to look to the schools and maybe help design the programs that will get them the students and the minds and the skill sets that they need.
I was not aware of that practice in Europe, but I will say professions in skilled labor is important, right? And especially when we look at AI. I mean, we always thought that white collar workforce was safe, not necessarily so. So there's a lot coming down the pike that we just don't know how corporate America or any part of society is going to be impacted. And community, when we come back and have another discussion with Pete, we're going to pivot to corporations that are still on the face of it supporting DEI and B. And we're going to look at the level of rigor that they're putting into their programs. So make sure you come back. In the meantime, if you want to hear this conversation or any of my previous podcasts, please go to my website, dranita.com. Remember to spell out the word doctor. And at the top, you want to click the link that says Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. Also, you can find me on your favorite podcast player. So please get in the flow, follow, like, and overshare any of my podcasts that help you reframe diversity conversations from difficult to different. Share them with your network. Until next time, this is Dr. Anita reminding you to stay blessed and keep it real.